Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast. I'm your host, David Gaspers, and I'm with Honky.
Team Jack Gala is this Saturday, folks. If you can, check it out. Go over there. They're going to have a lot of auction items up for bid. Help raise some money to fight pediatric brain cancer.
Very good cause. Thanks, Honk. Also with Boomer.
Well, I'd just like to thank the people at the Go Big Hoosier cast who are nice enough to, not violate Big Ten protocol and let us get our podcast off first tonight.
That's right. And last and least, Redcast Rob.
On the road again. It's just so nice to win on the road again. Going places that we've never, ever been. Oh, I just can't wait to win on the road again.
Very nice, Rob. Beautiful there. I mean, it's
You'll have a CD for sale at the end of the show.
Only for $19.95 if shipping annually.
Redcast Rob, AM Gold.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, guys, we got a fun show tonight because we have a victory to talk about for Nebraska basketball on the road. We'll get to that first. We also will talk a little baseball, maybe a little softball, women's basketball, football. You're right. There's college football playoff talk. Lots of stuff to get to, but obviously, Rob, the Fred Hoiberg led Nebraska Cornhuskers finally got that elusive conference road victory.
Well,
how does it feel?
Speaking of Fred Hoiberg there, Dave, I really do like your Fred Hoiberg looking pullover. That
he had white on tonight, but he has had this exact look on.
Yeah, and I would say, and I'm guessing that you got that at Alumni Hall, which has two locations located in Lincoln, one on P Street and the other on out at oh, geez. Now I can't even remember the South Point Pavilions. Yeah, thank you. So make sure you go out there and pick up all of your Fred Hoiberg basketball apparel from them because they are a great sponsor of ours and they send us some really nice clothes. Also, if you need some apparel of your own that you want to bootleg or even just make for any occasion that you have out there, reach out to our friends Shane and Laura out at Smack and Smooch. You can find them on Twitter and all the other socials. And you can also go to their Redcast store that they have, they will make you any Redcast apparel that you like, including the hat that I'm wearing and the hat that Honky is wearing. So they do not make the Rancid t-shirt I'm wearing, but I went to the gym and where I am undefeated this season during the second half of games, listening to Kent Pavelka call the game. And he was on fire tonight. Let me just tell you, it was kind of like an awkward silence for the first half of the second half, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And then as the Huskers kind of took the lead from where Indiana got it down to 3, which for the record, I don't think they ever led in this game. All of a sudden Huskers were back up 14. They kind of cruised from that point on. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. I'm not quite sure what the offensive strategy was, but I think kind of like the Huskers came out thinking it was in the bag and then all of a sudden Indiana started to try. It was a bit frustrating for sure, but I mean, when you're at the gym and you're like pulling weight, all of a sudden you're just kind of like just focusing on that and
the sweet sounds of Kent Pavelka.
Bang! Rang! Got him! Yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Well, Honky, I mean, maybe Smack and Smooch could print us up some T-shirts if we actually make the tournament, right? It's almost like we won national championship. It's like we just made the tournament, or if we win the game, right? It'd be a nice effect. But it has to feel good to get this monkey off our backs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy for Ken Pavelka right now. If there's anybody out there, I mean, that guy has been doing radio for us since the 80s. For Christ's sakes, he has seen. If I ever feel down for myself as a fan, gosh, I wish we'd win more for me. I just think of Kent, and I'm like, that dude he deserves this. I hope he's enjoying every second of it. Boomer, can you put that last comment up from Ryan? Because I think that was kind of where I was going to go with this. He says, hopefully this win gives us the confidence, momentum to build on and win out. The road win was the last thing holding them back. And then Lawrence coming out was huge development for this team. This win was huge. This gets us 2 above 500 now in conference with 4 games left and 2 of them being at home, where you almost by default, you just got to say that they're wins. You got to mark them off as a win. I know we got to do it. We got to go out and win it. The second I say that, everyone, especially on Facebook, is going to say 1 game at a time. I get it. But I'm just saying, when you these last 4, you have to.
Well, the next game's a home game,
No,
so
if
you got to go win that one.
If we're talking Facebook, they're just going to be like, we're not going to win any more games this year.
So you got to come back now and finish this up, beat Minnesota, and now you're 3 games above 500. And if we just go 2-2, just win the home games, that means in these last 5, you go 3-2. You're going to finish the season with 21 wins. You're going to finish at 2 above 500 in conference. We finally got that elusive away victory that you need. And at some point, I mean, I think that's enough. Now you get extra wins. You go out and you beat Ohio State or you beat Michigan on top of that. And I mean, you can start to talk a little seeding, which would actually be kind of fun to do. Not just what is the minimum for us to get in the tournament, but what can we do to maybe get a 7 seed versus an 8-9? Because 8-9 seed it's great, you're in there, but I'd rather be a 10 or 11 than an 8 and a 9 right now, because you got to also start looking at what's down the road. I think we can beat a 6 seed or a 7 seed if we were 10 or 11. Being the 8 or 9, you're turning right around and playing a 1 seed if you can get that elusive win. So
yeah, well, I mean, I'm not even going to worry about the second round, Honk.
I'm flat out this team.
I would say sometimes the 2 seeds are not going to be easy either, right? Unless Arizona's in there, But just kidding, Rob. I think Arizona's going to do fine this year. But
you can look
I guess anywhere between 7 and 10. I would rather not be a 6-11. I guess
you have a better shot. We did at work. We were doing work, but then this got in the way. We started doing some stats on. You have a better shot of making it further in the tournament as a 10 or 11 seed than the worst seed is a 9, and 8 seed is even worse than a 10 or 11 in terms of historically getting further. So my point is, I don't want to limp into it as a 10 or 11 seed. What can you do to get up to about a 7? I think that's realistically, if we just flat out win all 5 of these games, I think a 7 seed is realistic if you do that kind of finish. We'll see what happens in the Big Ten tournament too. But the point is, get some momentum going. Every year, they said this year, or Dave, before we got on, you said that they don't use the last 10 games, but crap, I hear it every year. They always talk about how did you do in your last 10. So have some momentum, finish this season strong the way they did last year. And this will, there can be some good things ahead.
Yeah. Well, Boomer, these guys are drinking the Kool-Aid. You want to bring us back down to earth?
Well, it was good to get that road win. It's been the one thing that's been eluding this team, repeatedly all season. Just letting chances slip away and getting embarrassed in all of them. The key is they do have to keep winning games. I mean, that's kind of been the one real weakness of this team, is just when you think they've turned that corner and they finally get that huge win they've been looking for, that's when they slip up. And you don't want to, you're still, when you're in that 10, 11 seed range, that's still enough depending on what other teams do, because you're not in isolation getting put into this whole bracket. You got to worry about, what are the other teams that are kind of on that bubble in that 10, 11 seed range, or, there's going to be some bid stealers that come out of, conference tournaments. There always are. So that's going to reshuffle some things too. So you got to be a little cautious there. So, the team can't lose focus. They can't just, coast now. Like I think they started to do the second half. They felt, safe for the 20-point lead, and nothing should be safe for this team. When you look at it, just historically and just game wise, so you need to go out and finish strong. Don't give a committee an excuse to leave you off. Make it so they really don't have a choice but to put you in there. Finish strong, get another road win. Don't lose any of those bad games at home. Just finish out. So you kind of take that away from them. Don't leave it a coin toss.
I think if you finish 3-1 right now, basically, like I said, it's non-negotiable. You got to win your 2 home games. You cannot lose those.
Yeah.
And then you even split between Ohio State and Michigan. At some point, it gets to be too ridiculous to even be on the bubble anymore. If you have
Yeah.
three, you win
Yeah,
3 out of these last
absolutely.
4, you're at 22 wins. You're 4 above 500 in conference. We've got quad 1 wins and everything. With that win tonight, which was a quad 2 win, we're 7-8 in the quad 1 and quad 2s. It still drives me nuts when I look at the net rankings. And I see some teams that are around us, Grand Canyon and McNeese, teams that are within 5 spots of us, and some of them haven't even played a quad 1 game. I'm like, what are we even doing ranking this shit if that's what you're going to do? If you're going to have these teams that close to each other, if schedule and all that stuff means anything. So trust me, I'm not, it's not a Kool-Aid thing right now. If you were talking to me about an hour or so back as they went on, picked up 17 points on us in 8 minutes of the second half or 9 minutes, whatever it was, like that's ridiculous. I mean, and I'm glad we were up 20 and everything, but Redcasters and Husker fans out there, I get it if you were frustrated as heck watching that slow demise. But what this team has shown and what I think will prove, one of the reasons I think it can have some kind of staying power if it gets into the tournament, is that this isn't like a one-trick pony like some of our teams have been, where it's like one guy you're really relying on or one or two guys. Like who were the guys that stepped up tonight? Alec hits a big 3 of all things when it got down to 3 and made it 6, something he did against Purdue when the game got down to 1 and Purdue was getting some momentum on us. Lawrence comes out of nowhere, and now we're getting multiple guys that are stepping up.
Career high for Lawrence tonight.
Yeah, I mean that's we've seen Casey at the beginning was hot, but Mast really didn't have a huge game today. But we know what he can do when he goes off. So there's a bunch of Williams. Yeah, Williams didn't have a big game, I think, against Penn State. Was that where Williams only scored 2 points? So different guys are stepping up in different games, and hopefully that will prove well for us as we get into postseason play.
Yep, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we finished the first half up 20, finished the game up 15. All right, Indiana went on a run. Good for them. They never took the lead.
It happened.
The Huskers stayed composed. They took the lead back, which is something that they haven't been able to do on the road all season. They shot 50% from the field for all intents and purposes, 49.2%. They were 14 of 33 from three-point line, 42%. They were where that 5 points is. You want to make that up? Like we had guys that make free throws tonight that were missing free throws. We were 9 of 14 from the line. Counter on that.
Jawan missed 2.
Yeah, counter on that. The refs did everything they could to give this game to Indiana to at least let them back into it. They had 20 at one point. They had 24 free throws to our 14 total in the game. But at one point in the second half, Nebraska had 7 fouls to their 1. I'm not even sure how we even got into the double bonus. And so, I mean, at that point, my point is that you can look negatively about that one little span, kind of hiccup, whatever we'll call it, the third quarter of the game. If this was the NBA, that would have been the third quarter where Indiana made their run. Other than that, I mean, this team stayed composed on the road in a very hostile environment. It was loud on my headphones listening to the game on the radio, and usually it's not. It'll drown.
Well, that was Kent, actually, Rob.
What's that?
I would say it was hostile. Yeah, it was hostile against their own team at times too. Indiana fans,
they were booing.
Indiana fans are not happy right now, and I understand it.
There was no way at some points there was one point where Tominaga got hit in the nose driving the ball. Like literally, you could see him get punched in the face and no foul call.
Yeah,
what are you gonna do?
I agree. Outside of that little 17-point hiccup that we,
it happens though. I mean, 17 is a lot. I agree, but I mean, you could argue that.
You can watch Penn State the game before against Illinois, right? In the last minute. So crazy things can happen. The free throw discrepancy was a little different, but thank God out of the 24 that they had, I think Ware shot 22 of them. Thank goodness. Keep shooting Ware.
He missed like 10. He was like 3 of 10 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Like,
Hack-aware, right?
Is hack-aware. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Is this 2 shows in a row? We're on the same page. This is weird.
I mean, it's just. I mean, again, I mentioned right before the show. I mean, like I expected Indiana to close that 20-point lead down, potentially in the single digits, right?
Sure.
And they took it down to 3. That was a little tighter than what I would have liked, but
never a doubt.
I mean, you knew they were going to come out with some different game plan. They stopped shooting threes at completely. I was concerned in the back half of the first half, actually, where they started getting Ware the ball more, and Mass got a second foul, and they were doing some stuff there. And then then we were able to make a run right at the end of the first half to break it out from a 12 to 14 all the way out to 20. And so that lead was a little bit false in the sense that it wasn't like it was 20 points the entire first half. It was just the last few minutes. So we made a nice little run to end the first. Their run to begin the second was bigger and more substantial, but ultimately it's difficult to sustain that, especially if we have a team that stayed composed. And Fred said in his post game interview on the court is like, hey, they got us down to 3, and during that timeout, he's like, guys, if I told you we were up by 3 with 12 minutes to go, you would take that, right? And they're like, absolutely. All right, let's just go ahead and play the game then. Let's not worry about what we lost or didn't lose. Just go out and play the game. And sure enough, they turned it around quite quickly.
Yeah. And look, basketball is a game of runs. Anyone that watched UConn against Creighton last night, Creighton was up 20 with 8 or 10 minutes left. And what did the UConn coach say in the huddle? He goes, guys, at the 4 minute, let's get it to 10. Can we get it to 10? And they got it to 10 by the 6th minute. I mean, that's how quickly they got it to 10. But to your point, before we were even on too, Dave, you talked about how much that takes out of a team to have to make up that kind of a deficit. So it takes a lot out of you to get those 10 points back or those 17 points back. And sometimes it's a dagger just to have 1 3 or one big shot against you made. And now that lead starts looking
right. If you can't keep the momentum going, time starts to tick then all of a sudden. And it's just always a challenge.
So good win, guys. Good win.
Yeah, and you know what, too? I mean, I'm going to counter Boomer's whole doomsday, try to win the end of the season, etc. But the Huskers finish out the season 4-0. They're 23-8. They win the Big Ten tournament. They're 26-8. Right? I'm reading.
I allow it.
I'm reading James. Is it pronounced Prush? He's a writer for Husker Corner, I believe it is, and he's become one of my favorite follows on Twitter. 26-8, Huskers are a 3 seed. There you go.
Isn't that 26-8? That was the 91 team, right? Huh?
91.
Weren't they 26?
Yeah, as long as we don't play Xavier.
Yeah, that didn't end well.
Yeah, if we don't have Xavier or play any other teams that start with X in the first round, I think we're fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities still. I mean, this season we get the double bye in the Big Ten tournament and then win 3 games in a row and you're champions, Big Ten champs. Does that ever happen? No. Let's do it.
I'm going to be
the 95 Big 8. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
Hey,
Rob, I'm going to be the Facebook guy now. Just beat Minnesota, okay? Minnesota.
Yeah. Minnesota's playing better, actually, quite a bit.
For the record, Honky, you're the one that said that chalk up the 2 games at home as wins. I just want to be clear.
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to get us in the second round of the tournament. I get it. But to your point, Dave, yes, Minnesota is playing a lot different basketball than they were the first time.
Payne is playing really well. They were picked to finish last in the Big Ten. They're not playing like the 14th team in the Big Ten. Just like we're not playing as the 11th or 12th or whatever we were picked, right? So you have to take that game very seriously. Minnesota is a net of 76 right now. They have a real shot to get into a quad 1 type territory there for that road loss that we had. It wouldn't be a quad 1 at home against them. But point is they're not nearly as bad as we probably thought we perceived them to be when we lost to them early this year. Or early this season. So let's figure it out.
Boomer, show that one from Tyler there too. So Tyler Pearson, he's been on the show before. He's a great fan of the Huskers, great supporter of them. He's helped support basketball, and he got a really cool. Well, he went to the Maryland game, I think, with the Leadership Society, and then he sent me photos the other day. Texted me photos. He got a basketball signed by Hoiberg and the team and everything. He has it in his office. Really cool stuff. Husker fans, Redcasters, if you can support the anyone that can go out there and do the Husker Leadership Society, do it. It is so worth it. I'm not part of it, but I do want you to spend your money if you can be a part of it. But it goes a long ways, and I'll tell you, Tyler would be the biggest salesperson for it. It's exciting. I've seen some photos too that he's got to go to practice and like bring his kid and they take photos with him. I mean, it's been really fun to watch. So it's a fun team to get behind. It really is. I know it's maddening, and I say that as I'm pointing the thumb at myself. You'll notice tonight, Dave, I wasn't texting or anything.
No,
I'm
very
staying off
quiet.
because basketball is it's tough for me to watch. It's too quick.
I know it is.
It's one moment high, one moment low, and that's really hard for me to do. But I'll tell you, watching actually what was the game? It was the Penn State game. I missed like the first half of it, so I came back and rewatched it afterwards when it was done. I already knew what the final was and everything.
Yeah.
And rewatching it where I already knew what the score was going to be was awesome, because then I was like, I know we won it, so now I'm going to watch it without all the crazy ups and downs. Same thing with the women's game actually against Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
Alex had a basketball game, and I didn't get to watch it at all. I DVR'd it, and I got to see that we won the game, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to rewatch the fourth quarter after everyone told me what happened. I was like, I'm just going to watch the fourth quarter with absolutely no fear, no pit in the stomach or anything. It was just like, I know we're going to win it. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great win for Amy Williams and that team, and very cool to keep Caitlin Clark from breaking the record on our home court. It was awesome, Boomer, that it was on Fox, right? I mean, this was like a national broadcast, great exposure for the program in women's basketball in general, and let Caitlin break it against someone else, right?
Yeah. I mean, that, like you said, Dave, I can't remember how many, million some odd people they said to.
Yeah, it was like the most watched women's basketball game, at least regular season of all time, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 1.7 million or something like that. Maybe I think I read, but yeah, it was a great number, and it's good to see people, tuning in for it. And yes, that's what you want to see if you're going to have everybody watching it. I mean, as much as they talk about Caitlin Clark every last second of every game she's in, it's fun to, see it go down in flames like that in that fourth quarter, especially where she got, 0 points, because I always just think of like the Caitlin Clark breakfast cereal you see, it's good for the, good for 3/4 of breakfast anyway. And then it turns to soggy, but
she was stuck at like 8 to go for the record for a long time.
Yeah. Well, she did. She scored no points in that fourth quarter. So, I mean, it's, and there's some conspiracy with the Iowa fans that was the coach's intent, so she could break the record at home. Because they did kind of look a little discombobulated. Their offense seemed to run a little different. But granted, we switched to a different defense in that fourth quarter, and that seemed to throw Iowa, completely off their game. I don't think they planned for anything, and then just kind of let that fall apart. And boy, that was fun to watch. So
yeah, and Iowa coach Elisa Bluter, I believe that's how you say her last name, was very composed afterwards.
Yes, yeah. I mean, she was worried that their chartered plane would leave without them for that 30-minute flight back to Iowa City.
That Caitlin pays for probably.
Yeah. I think she needed an old fashioned just to calm down. Boomer, Generation Red. Ken's asking, is that an old fashioned you're drinking?
No. Tonight this is just a diplomat. It's a lot lighter. Have a cocktail for the weekdays. So I took a different approach to Lent this year. So
nice.
That's fair. So.
What's Lent?
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about it after the show. Yeah.
All right, guys. Basketball wise, obviously, we're going to be watching this closely. It's an interesting schedule going forward here. We have Minnesota on Sunday, and then we have at Ohio State next Thursday, and then we have 2 Sunday games to follow up. So there's only 4 games left here. Sunday, March 3rd, Rutgers, and then the 10th of March is at Michigan. So it's definitely a not only is it easier opponents, there's more time off here, right? We finally had a week off before that Michigan game. We get another one here before the last Michigan game. This team should be ready, rested, and ready to go to try to get as many W's on the tally sheet as possible before the Big Ten tournament. And I do hope that at this point wins will start to take us off the bubble. We entitled the show "Life on the Bubble." Maybe if we can win a few more of these here, Honk, to your point, we can stop worrying about the bubble and start thinking about seeding only when the Selection Sunday gets here.
I still don't understand the bubble talk, but that's okay. I hear you, Rob. I mean, every year the bubble is a different size and shape, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's deeper, sometimes it's wider, and sometimes it has a lot more teams in it, right? And sometimes the good witch comes down in it. I don't.
Well, I mean, I guess my point is, typically speaking, from my perspective, when I think of the bubble, I think of really the last 8 in and the last 8 out.
And I don't think
my bubble is
Nebraska's
maybe
even close to
12 to
that.
16 teams. And for big portions of the year, we have not necessarily been the last 8 in. Now, I'd say after we had lost Illinois there and before the last couple of victories, we were definitely in that last 8 in. But now we're creeping back out of it, right? I think we could get squarely out of it with a couple more wins, and we don't need to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I
would rather be on this. We're on the right side of the bubble. I mean, almost if you look at bracket matrix.
I think we're on the outside. I think we're on the outside of the bubble. I think
right on the right.
Check Lunardi tomorrow, and we were in the last 4 in a couple days ago, and I think maybe before the Penn State win that. Now we got into that the second 4 in, like the better off, and I think we were the second team in that as of today. Tonight's win might be enough to get us off of that, and then we're not in even that last 8. So
how accurate is
what I think
anyway? Like that's what I want to know. So there's like 90 something things I know, but he's kind of like he's good, but he's kind of like middle good.
I'm just trying to be consistent following one. Yeah. I'm just trying to follow one, instead of trying to follow 30 different metrics. I'm following the net, and I am following Lunardi. Those two, and just staying consistent and watching what happens as something wins or loses, and do we see big shifts and everything. The net, we've been sticking around the lower 50s, and then the last couple of days we've gotten into the high 40s. So 47, where are we tomorrow with that? I think that we're in pretty good shape. I'm curious, the vermin across the river to the east, Iowa, they start sneaking up here. They get a huge win yesterday at Michigan State, and they start to kind of get themselves into bubble talk. But also, I think Michigan State is trending in the opposite direction. I don't know when the last time Tom Izzo hasn't gone, and I know they have a high net ranking right now, but they're not going in the right direction, losing these games. So, I don't know how many total the Big Ten is going to get in, if it's 6. But I think this is a 6-bid league.
I mean, Michigan State, I'm looking at, I do like bracket matrix because to your point, Honky, I want to have like, it's an index, right? I mean, it's like the Dow Jones or NASDAQ. It's simply taking all of these different bracket projections. They have 108 now on here, right? And they're just averaging everything out. All it is, right? Michigan State's a 7. I mean, they're not on the bubble. And they would have to be pretty disastrous for them to get on the bubble. We're before this game was at a 10, and we're in 106 of the 108 projections, averaging a 10.39 seeding. So safely into the tournament right now.
It's crazy. We're 2, 10 3, 4, and 5. Michigan State's a 7. When
that's the BS of it. Like, there is a point where metrics be damned. Like, I look at Michigan State right now; it's 17-10, and we beat them. They are 9-7. They're tied with us in conference. They had some bad losses along the way too. They had a great win against Baylor. They lost to James Madison or whoever it was to begin the season. But
first year,
the point is the idea that they are just simply not on the bubble. Which I'm not debating you on that, by the way, Dave, either. They probably are listed as a 7 seed right now, but I think it's completely fair for fans to sit there and go, why? Other than it's Michigan State and it's Izzo, if this is about this season, what has Michigan State done that completely takes, any of that out of question? By the way, when they lost Iowa at home yesterday, that's a home loss, and that's bad, and here we are sitting at undefeated at home, and now hopefully going to rack up a couple of away ones. But
yeah, I think a lot of it's just they lost to good non-con teams. They lost to James Madison, who played pretty well. They lost to Duke. They lost to Arizona, and I think they played. Was it Baylor? I think they actually beat in the.
They beat Baylor badly right after they played us.
And I think that's what is accounting for that difference.
Let's talk about this too. The 4 remaining teams. We got Minnesota, Rutgers, Ohio State, and Michigan. And I mean, we get past Minnesota this weekend, and those last 3 teams, I mean, how much do you think they're going to check out for the season? I mean, those are like bottom feeders of the Big Ten right now. I mean, It's
Well,
like
that NIT seating becomes important for them.
well, I don't even. They won't even. They're not even NIT consideration. These guys are. Like,
I mean, I
they're
hear you, Rob. I
terrible.
mean, I don't
Yeah.
want to take any risk on that, but,
No,
you're right. There could be a chance that we do actually have a couple of.
I mean, Michigan's like missing like one of their best players right now. They're 8-18.
Only on the road. He's at their home game, so he'll likely be against us.
All right,
But
that's
we cannot. But yeah, no, I get it, but I just don't want to risk that. But I mean, the net is a predictive, in some ways, a predictive ranking, I guess, opposed to always reflecting on your accomplishments. I sent you guys an interesting breakdown of the net and all the things the committee looks at a few days ago. Strength of record is one that apparently is far better at actually predicting the field than net. Right? I mean, Rutgers has made the tournament with a 77 net hockey and didn't make the tournament with a 40 net. Right? So net is not very good at predicting who actually makes the tournament. So the point of that is there's other metrics out there that might be worth following. Michigan State has a strength of record of 40, right? So their net's good. I mean, that's no doubt about it. But I guess my point there is that you can narrow your bubble watch to Joe Lenardi in the net, but it probably isn't serving your purpose of really understanding who's going to make it the tournament or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's clear as day watching Michigan State and Wisconsin over the last few weeks. They're pretty cemented where they're at, no matter what happens.
Once you get in,
they've been losing and losing and just staying right around 20 to 24, and it just hasn't mattered. So, I mean, it is what it is. Whatever, we win games, we're going to be fine. So, we're doing fine in the honk palm. The honk palm, we're like number 17 right now. So.
Yeah, the honk palm is my favorite ranking system, and in case any of you don't know that, that's Honky's ranking system, which is actually a very complicated mathematical formula that includes a lot of him basically telling us exactly what he thinks. And
only one team is actually ranked in the honk palm. It's just Nebraska.
It is. We were number 8 in the honk palm at halftime tonight, and then we dropped when it got down to 3 points. We dropped all the way to 72, but then by the end of the game, we were back into like the teens. So the point is, the honk palm's very, this is a bad.
It's an emotional.
Really. This is a bad adjustable rate mortgage you're getting if you're following the honk palm, man. You are way up and down from not just month to month, from minute to minute.
Okay, so enough of this like projection crap. We're done with that. We could talk about this all night. My favorite part of the game tonight, listening on the radio, was when Williams just like block that shot at the end of the game, right? Like just basically said like, "F you, Indiana, you're not winning this game."
Yeah.
And Pavelka shot blocked. He grabbed that out of the air like it was a piece of gum. Like it was just the most beautiful thing in the world. Like listening to it, I just retweeted it too. And
gum.
A wad of gum. I take that back. A wad of gum. Yeah, like, and
not what you normally grab out of the air.
And I just and for anybody listening right now, I just retweeted like the actual like video of that play sequence too, when he's screaming that, and you can just hear the Indiana crowd going like, "Ooh," like on that block. And he even compared him at one point to Dikembe Mutombo.
Oh, so sure, Bryce Williams, Dikembe Mutombo.
I love
exactly
Ken.
right.
Yeah, I just
that's awesome.
It was so
Dave,
good.
I don't know if this is a segue to football, but TriStar out of the blue here, Tom Osborne is better than Nick Saban. I don't disagree. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But there's your football.
Before we get to football, he's got a Tennessee. All right, yeah, awesome. All right,
we're huge in Nashville, Dave.
Well, let's talk a little bit of baseball because the SEC land loves baseball, and Tennessee has a good baseball program. And Nebraska baseball did win their first game of the year. Boomer with a victory over Baylor, and had 2 additional victories slip out of their hands to Texas Tech and Oklahoma. But not a horrible start to the year, but it could have been a lot better.
Yeah, that's basically the takeaway from it. That was a tough opening.
That's right.
slate.
You're like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, you got Baylor Tech
I
and
think
Oklahoma.
to quote my wife at the end of of listening to the Oklahoma game, we were in the car driving home from our trip to Glenwood this weekend, and we're listening to the game in the car, and Oklahoma took the lead took the lead, and she goes, "Oh, that's not good, is it?" She goes, "They were doing so good up until then. That's not good, is it?"
It's too early to be negative. But
It is.
So I'll say that the starting pitching was probably maybe our biggest concern, and they actually pitched better than expected.
So well, those boys pitched so well.
Concerned with the back end and not finishing in the ninth. Lost opportunities there to really put them in a great shape with the non-conference SOS, but we'll see where it goes. But I think a promising start and the one they need to capitalize on going forward.
Yeah, and the kid, I can't remember his name, but the kid that they put in as the closer too. I mean, he'll get his confidence. They've been putting him in some like tough situations in practice and in simulated games and things like that, coming in and pitching, and he'll get it. I think his biggest issue is going to be trusting his defense behind him and just giving the other team pitches that they can put into play. Plus the ump the Oklahoma ump on that game was calling a very tight plate the entire game both ways. So I'm not saying that what I mean, but and for a lot of these college kids too, I mean, they're not going to have major league control on their pitches, and when they're calling like really tight strike zones like that, it does make it a lot harder, especially when you're working with a new coach. These kids are probably still working on a lot of their new motions, things like that, new pitches maybe, and it's so early in the season.
It's the first week of the season.
Yeah, it's so early in the season, so I'm making good excuses, I think.
So to go back to, we talked about Tennessee for a second. I think it was the night before we played Oklahoma. Oklahoma played Tennessee late into the night and beat them at 1 in the morning. And what I thought was funny or humorous, at least a little bit, was the next day on Sunday when we were playing Oklahoma and we were up, we were already getting some of the excuses I was seeing on social media of people like, Sooner fans or whatever. Oh, they're tired. They played late the last night. And I'm like, you SOBs, any Southern team that wants to give a Northern team an excuse early in the season, I don't care if you played till 4 a.m. You are from Oklahoma. You are supposed to beat Nebraska in February playing baseball. You just flat out are. And that's not an excuse for a collapse at the end with our pitching. They've got to get that fixed. I mean, that's Ron, I think Childress understands that. I think he's a decent pitching coach there. But it's the idea that it still drives me nuts. And we have this conversation every year. Why are we playing baseball right now? This is just stupid.
Yeah.
We should be pushing this stuff back a month. But I'm going to hijack the conversation if I still go down that far. But it's one weekend, and start getting some wins this weekend is going to be important. They need some early confidence, I think, coming off of that.
Boomer, who do they have up on the schedule next?
It's Grand Canyon, isn't it?
Grand Canyon. We got 4 games against them. And then,
4 games.
College of Charleston after that, I think.
Okay.
So, all right. And then South Alabama starts the home slate at Hawksfield in March 8th, I think it is. Somewhere around there.
Okay.
Friday. Sounds right.
All right.
March 8th. So, time for winnable games. I think our current RPI in baseball is 135th. So those of you interested in metrics, I mean, granted that is a completely useless metric at this point in the season, but
anything more worthless than RPI this early in the season?
Did anyone pay attention to other Big Ten teams last weekend in baseball?
Iowa is like 3-1 right now. I think I don't recall who they played, but
Iowa's ranked actually. So
somebody beat US. Then I think they played USC. Somebody, if it was Indiana,
they played
Iowa.
Seton Hall, Ball State, and Lehigh. And
who did Indiana play last weekend? I think somebody played USC. That was a Big Ten team, and
they actually won.
And even that's the conversation of next year, adding the USCs and the UCLAs and everything into the mix. Oregon, who was down there in Texas last weekend at that tournament.
Yeah, it'll be a big change, no doubt about it.
All right, 3-1 as well. Yep.
Yeah. So, just really quickly here, softball honky, difficult
brutal
injury to Jordy Ball there. I mean, hopefully full recovery and we get to see her next year, obviously. But a difficult loss there by softball, but they have bounced back and are looking okay, right?
Yeah, I think someone was like the player of the week even coming off of last week. And Boomer, I don't know if you looked that up or not, but like they prior to the season, obviously with Jordy Ball, with the idea of her being healthy is that they went in, they've been renovating Bowling Stadium. They've added some extra seating and everything for it. And if there's ever a team that needs that support right now, because it hasn't just been Jordy Ball, they've hit the injury bug immediately. Redcasters, that is a team to go out and support this season just because they need it more than anything. But to your point there, Dave, it happened so early in the season that she basically came out right away and said, I'm coming back. I'm redshirting. She hasn't done that. So she's going to redshirt. And then the idea is that we'd have her for 2 more seasons after that. Yep. So
Sydney Gray
we're going to catch one. We're going to catch that game on Saturday, right, Honky, for the maybe even Friday afternoon, like when I come out for the spring game, right?
It could be spring game weekend. There's a baseball and softball game. Who was it, Boomer? You said
Sydney Gray. Yep, she was the player of the week. Yeah, she had a good series against New Mexico. She went 5 of 16 with 3 homers and 10 RBIs. And bats were definitely lacking at the start of the season too, not only with injury. They weren't scoring any runs, and they were able to turn that around finally. So that was huge. So kind of turned the season a little bit there. So well deserved. So.
That's right. Hard to score down in Puerto Vallarta, I guess.
And actually, Andy Liss, he said Glad Ball is at least in her home state to recover. Yeah. That was a legitimate concern they were talking about then, was when she had that injury down there in Mexico. It was like, I don't know exactly what kind of medical help they were able to do first. So they were happy to get her back.
Puerto Vallarta is pretty much like, it's pretty, it's not like Cabo, but it's not far off. So I think they were probably okay, but
they were fine.
Yeah, it's good stuff down there.
Plus they bring all their own staff and trainers, and these guys are trained professionals. For these college teams. So
that's no question about how Nebraska was taking care of her, certainly.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and put on our scarlet-colored glasses and finish the show off with a little football talk. And let's throw it to you, Boomer. And what do you want to? We've got a couple of topics we're going to tackle. You want to go big picture or
tackle?
That's right. Fire away, Boomer.
Oh, geez. Where do you guys want to start? There's playoff talk. There's scheduling talk. I mean, there's all sorts of good things that.
Well, let's talk with. I'll tell you what. I'll reverse this. We're going on the fly here, Honky. Let's talk a little bit just where Nebraska's at before they get to spring ball, and then we'll go to playoff talk and then scheduling. So
I like it.
Just in general, Honky. Obviously, mat drills have started. What are you hearing from all of that, and when do they actually start spring ball?
Yeah, I was reading the 3 and Out today, Brian Munson on Husker Online. He referenced a lot of the freshman class and newcomers that are coming in there. The 2 transfer receivers, Banks and Neer, they've been leaders in a lot of the metrics and everything, and been mentioned a number of times by Coach Rule. But within the freshman class, it's the guys you'd kind of expect. Both quarterbacks were getting talked about in the mat drills and the weightlifting so far as being leaders, Rayola and Kalen. So, we'll see here in a couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll start to get a lot more as spring ball gets started. Spring ball will start mid-March, and then right in the middle of spring ball, that's when they'll have the coaches clinic, which we used to go to all the time. I don't even know if it's available for people that aren't coaching right now, which is what we did for a number of years. I haven't even tried to get into one now since 2019. But this year they just announced that Belichick's going to be at it. So Bill Belichick,
awesome. Wow.
It's the second time that he came here, and I forgot. I was like, he didn't come here before, and it was 2012, which I think, Dave, was it would have been your wedding, but it wasn't your wedding. It was I think it was the bachelor party. There was a reason I didn't go to a coach's clinic one of those years, and I think we were doing something surrounding that.
2012 would have been the right year, yeah.
Yeah, so the year I didn't go was when Belichick was there, which I don't really care, to be honest with you. I don't go there for whoever the the keynote speaker is. It was always watch practices and listen to our coaches. But anyways, that's a great get though from Rule. I mean, obviously that's awesome to get him in there and bring some notoriety there. And so excited to see spring ball get started. I don't know, kind of rambling there with that, but excited to see it get started. We're at 101 scholarships was the last I've seen. So there's some work to be done here this semester. You're going to see some numbers drop off after spring ball, but I like where the roster's at right now, going through mat drills and everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Well, and when does the actual spring practice start then, Hawk?
I think it's in a couple of weeks. Still, I don't have the exact date in front of me.
Early March.
It'll start in March. I think it was Hawaii that just had their spring game. So,
oh wow,
yeah, there was already
international dateline or something. So
confusing.
Different time zones. It's
just bizarre out there. But
it's already April there.
Yeah, and I know the Husker account sent out on Twitter, at least sent out some photos today again from weightlifting and all that. I was taking a walk around the stadium complex today, and that weight room, you can start to see inside it now. I can start to see through the windows and everything. They got the lights on in there, some of the neon. There's a big wall thing that it says Nebraska and has a guy on it, and there's something there. It's gonna look nice. I don't know if they're in there yet, actually doing anything, but it looks pretty ready from the eye, from the outside at least.
Yeah, that's awesome. All
March
right,
24th is when practice starts. It says according to this.
March 24th, and then
I like it. Hockey. You're walking around the weight room. You're crunching, like tournament results for years. That's good. Good. I like that. So,
multitasking, doing it at the same time.
That's
so
good. I like that.
walking, crunching numbers, and
I like that.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Well, more recently in the news, we have some modifications to the college football playoff format, which may have implications down the road. Boomer, it looks like they've gone from a 6+6 model, which would have been the 6 top conference champions and 6 at-larges, to a 5+7 model. This is in response to the Pac-12 going poof. And so now it's kind of the Power 4 plus the top group of 5 conference. I can try to do my math.
I'll call it
right.
That,
So what do you think of this, and how is it?
Well, like you said, it was probably inevitable when it comes to the Pac-12. Just completely shooting itself in the, well, I wouldn't even say the foot. They just shot themselves repeatedly in the chest over the last couple of years, and dissolved. It was going to be hard to maintain that, and I think you're kind of seeing this already, because there's even talk today about how they're already looking past this first couple seasons of the college football playoff, and they were looking at, do we go to a 14-team playoff? And there was talk of that, especially like the Big Ten and the SEC were pushing for, multiple automatic qualifiers for conferences, like as many as 4, is kind of things going around. So I think that was probably inevitable with this, especially once the Pac-12 went away, that your big power conferences weren't going to guarantee another slot for what would now be a group of 5, conference if you'd stuck to the 6-6 model. Right. So this way you're ensuring another, I mean, in all honesty, it's going to be another Power 5 school taking that slot.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
highly likely.
With this model too, I saw somebody comment on it, and I was thinking about it too. Is that okay? So you got the 1 through 4 is going to be probably the top 4 teams from the top 4 conferences, right? What if
theoretically it could happen?
What if Notre Dame's the number 1 team in the country? Like
they
5.
They cannot
be higher than the 5th seed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They can't be higher than a 5th seed, and that's hilarious to me.
I mean, they do get a small advantage. They don't have a conference title game that they'll have to play. So
exactly, they play one less game, and I agree. I don't disagree with it. I find it hilarious because that's that's probably one of the most arrogant fan bases that you will see out there and anywhere.
And Jack Swarbrick is the AD has been right there the whole time. I mean, so they've accepted this, right?
Yeah, and that's what they want right now. Yeah, he's voted for it, and he was. They were
make your bed and lie in it, even if it's gonna have
as
some glass and nails.
As a 5 seed, to your point, Rob, they get a home game in South Bend against probably the group of 5 team, right? I mean, so
probably, the most likely.
It's going to be hard for them to stay independent, period, because as we look forward, I mean, look, the ACC, this is fairly starting to lay itself out
Yes.
pretty nicely. The
It's getting
ACC, we if this was the discussion 2 years ago when UCLA and USC announced that they were leaving, we immediately started talking about the P4, right? I mean, the Pac-12 is going to blow up. How do they withstand that? Well, now the next discussion is we're really talking about the P3 here in a couple of years. I mean, even just today, it's rumors that Virginia Tech and North Carolina State are trying to get into the Big 12. Why? Because they weren't approved by the SEC and the Big 10. I don't know. I mean, again, some of this is rumors, but it also isn't that far-fetched to think that those two schools, like other ACC schools, are looking outward, and it wouldn't blow your mind to hear the SEC and the Big 10 go, nah. In fact, I mean, if you just named off the top of your head, name two teams, Dave, that are going to go to the Big 10 from the ACC. Who are the two teams right away?
I'll say North Carolina and Virginia.
Yep, that's and Notre Dame if it happens, but I think you're right. If you said name two ACC teams that are going to the SEC right off the bat, who would you say?
Florida State and Clemson.
There you go.
Although I'm iffy on both of those, but I mean they fit the profile.
Sure would,
yeah, there's arguments.
I don't know if Florida or South Carolina likes either one of those, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's I've heard people say Florida State will go ACC. The point is, no one's arguing that isn't going to happen. Those things are going to happen. The ACC is going to blow up. Yeah. So then you get to a point where you have three mega conferences, and if you're Notre Dame and you want to fight this, eventually, not only is it hard for you to get into the playoff, at least be a top 4 seed, they're going to make the playoff rules where they're not advantageous to you. But the next thing is good luck scheduling. I mean, you've got a sweet deal right now at the ACC where you can just play kind of in a conference, but not play in a conference. We're going to get to a point where, one of the discussions we're having is non-conference scheduling. We really got to look at football as not being part of the NCAA anymore at some point.
Yeah.
3-4 years.
Or a completely modified NCAA.
Yeah. And now you're only playing your own teams because now you have 20, 24 team conferences. Maybe you're playing 10, 11 games of just Big 10. Maybe you get one crossover game. Like I would love to have Nebraska, Oklahoma be some crossover annual rivalry game played outside of the conference. Like that would be wonderful. But the point is, for these $1 billion TV contracts, they're eventually just not going to want to see Nebraska playing McNeese anymore, not seeing Michigan playing Bowling Green and all that. So I think that's what's going to happen. So there was all this chatter on Twitter the other day about Matt Rule's comments about not wanting to schedule those teams. I think it's all a moot point because we've got our schedules out till 2032. Contracts can be broken, but does anyone think that this system is going to be in place by 2032 anyways? It's such a
it might not even it might not even be in place by 2026 hockey. So I mean that's
just the discussion today that they're already talking about modifying the 12-team playoff
to a 14.
And we haven't even played.
They're talking about 14.
And we still don't have a TV contract signed by ESPN, who has been self-reporting themselves as winning this contract for months now.
So we haven't even played the 12-team playoff, and they're already talking about a 14-team playoff. Like this is just getting to be.
I always complain about football not being forward-thinking, so at least they're getting ahead of the curve here a little bit in the weirdest way possible.
Well, the NFL has 14 teams in their playoff now, so why don't we just do that?
Let's be realistic too. I mean, I feel for anyone right now. I feel for some of the power teams that could fall off the cliff. We're seeing Oregon State, Washington State. I legit feel for them, but producer Skip there, big Colorado State fan. Group of 5 teams in FCS in the future. I almost look at that as one league. I mean, what's the difference between North Dakota State and Wyoming at some point? I think those teams could probably join together. But the reality is are those teams even going to have access, not to playoffs? Are they going to have access to even play those money games against Nebraska, against Michigan, against Ohio State? Because if you're not in
their financial dynamic,
if you're not in one of those top 50 teams in those, I think the Big 12 is going to make it. They're proving to be the league that's going to be they're going to get the rejects that aren't going to the Big 10 and the SEC. Anybody that's in the Big 10 or Big 12 at any moment would leave in a heartbeat if the Big 10 or the SEC came to them. Mm-hmm. But I think the Big 12 is really important because it's kind of the league that's it's staying alive by just taking anybody that is falling off. And
which is incredible considering how many times the Big 12 just
I
almost
know what
I thought it was dead.
repeatedly.
Want to
I
bet
would
on
never
thought it
thought
was
that would be the
so many
surviving
times.
league out of any of this. You know.
Yep. Thought it was dead 10
Years ago.
times.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it did the smart thing where you guys mentioned earlier, the Pac-12 in some weird way kind of deserves this. They fought all this expansion for all those years. It's killed them now. Whereas the Big 12, it's like, why are you taking West Virginia or why are you doing this? Good on them. That's what's kept them relevant. And now they're a legit conference. And not just in football. I think, they're basketball wise. I mean,
they're very good.
Yeah.
yeah. So they've done that by continuing to grow, even when sometimes we're like, why are they taking that team or that team? Well, they're positioning themselves now to get North Carolina State, to get Virginia Tech, to get those teams that from the ACC that if they don't end up going to one of the two big ones, they'll go to the Big 12.
Yep. Yeah. So, Boomer, let's wrap this up a little bit with this scheduling philosophy and what Matt Rule was talking about. To Honky's point, I mean, we have our non-con supposedly figured out, right? We have Tennessee on that non-con, Oklahoma, Cincinnati,
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah,
Colorado,
exactly.
Even Oklahoma State all the way in like 2035. But I digress. Continue.
So no, I mean, maybe keep it simple. Let worst case scenario and best case scenario in your opinions on how this all plays out from a non-conference scheduling standpoint for Nebraska.
Well, I guess, it's been a big, heated thing on Twitter, on various places the last couple of days. It really depends how you look at it and what we're really going to do with this and what you read into Rule's comments. Now, the question is, are we going to just stick with what we have? And he's talking, past 2035 or whatever. This is how I would schedule, not playing those games anymore. Or do we really think we're going to get out of these contracts? And maybe that's, I don't know. Is this just Nebraska thinking this, or is there more behind the scenes that other schools are going to look to get out of these contracts, or everyone's just going to casually kind of let them drop? I don't know. So that's a big question that has to be asked first. Is this just kind of talk? Is this something long-term he's thinking past this era, or is this kind of something everybody's going to do? I guess from different perspectives from a fan, I mean, personally, just as a football fan, I would hate to see schools just do this regularly. I don't want to see games played against, three bad teams. I mean, essentially, that's what it is. Right. You're playing bad opponents. And, one of the people on Twitter say, you want to buy easy wins and have warm-up games. Do you really want that?
Yeah.
I mean, especially three of them. And like you'd said, do the TV people that are shelling out money want this? I don't think they do. And I think that's probably what's going to put pressure on this not to happen, at least in the long run, is especially with how this would be scheduled. Because, what people complain about a lot of times is, we don't want to start the season with conference games because that makes it hard. Okay. So if everybody goes to this kind of scheduling model, is the first month of college football going to be just complete mismatches between these Power 5 blue blood type programs playing crap for essentially a month to start the season?
Yeah.
Well,
that's not a good TV product, and they're not going to want that. So that's a challenge. But I do understand a little bit from, the people that are saying, well, this makes it easier to get into the playoff type thing with the expanded playoff and whatnot. But I'm not sure it does. I thought about that. People point to Michigan this year as an example of, they played a soft schedule and look where it got them. And they did. They also went undefeated in a Big Ten, and everything else kind of played out well for them. Just the way the teams that lost.
Everybody at the end they were supposed to be.
Yeah. But I think of how, the non-con scheduling worked for other teams this year. Texas, if they hadn't scheduled Oklahoma, say they played Tulsa instead of
Alabama
this year. Excuse me, Alabama. Do you think they would have made the playoffs? I don't think they would have.
Well, it was the fact it's the fact they won that game, and it's the fact that
they beat Alabama on the road, which got them in there.
It had a lot of
Georgia this year. I mean, Georgia's a good team, but this was probably their worst non-con schedule they've played in years. Because I thought about it, because one of the reasons people give for we should play a softer non-con schedule, we play 9 conference games, which the SEC doesn't, which is fair.
They're about.
But then I think about Georgia, like the last couple seasons. This year is an exception. But think of their last couple seasons. What non-con schedule do they play? Yeah, they play an FCS crap team. They'll play some other non-con, terrible team. But they also play like Georgia Tech and Oregon, one
Yeah,
year.
they have one
Georgia Tech
early
and somebody else.
non-con good game,
Yeah,
and
they're
they always play
playing
Georgia
two
Tech at
Power
the
5
end.
non-con games.
but
Granted,
Boomer,
there's an FCS and a late crap game. They
I'll
have a
just-
schedule. I get that.
I mean, Boomer, the team that went undefeated and didn't make the playoff this year,
Yeah.
Florida State, scheduled LSU and Florida in their non-con in addition to 8 teams.
Right.
And so the point is, the College Football Playoff Committee just told you last year, I don't care what and I don't care what Florida and LSU did, by the way. That's a moot point to me. I'm talking about scheduling. They scheduled 2 SEC teams there that won national championships, over the last 25 years. Let's just put it that way, or 15 years, 20 years, whatever. And they didn't get in. And here's Michigan scheduling the way they did, and they did. I get it. I get all the fans that are. I would prefer to see. My preference is I want to see good games over bad games. That's what I want to see. And they will always figure out a scheduling way that you play one of those FCS teams in November, you mix it all up. So you're never going to have a weekend where it's all bad games. There's always some good team playing some good team. But with that said, I just don't think this is going to happen. The last time that Nebraska had a chance to play Oklahoma in a home and away, you go back to Black Friday of 2021, someday in March, where the rumors got out that we weren't going to play Oklahoma.
God.
And Bill Moose is out on his 4-wheeler somewhere in Washington. And that was around for about 3 hours, and Nebraska fans lost their minds. Do I think that we're going to cancel our series with Oklahoma? No, but that game's also in 2030 and 2031 or whatever. And I don't think this system's going to be there. This is, it's trying to have it's having multiple conversations. I don't think, to your point, Dave, with Rule, I don't think we're going to do anything with the next year with Colorado. Obviously, that's not going to happen. The 2 years after that, I don't even know who the team we play Cincinnati one year. I don't think we're going to touch that immediate schedule. And then within 3 or 4 years, I think this is going to kind of take care of itself because college football is going to change.
Yeah. And so to your point there, I mean, like if we're really looking forward to we're not looking forward to, but looking at this as in the future, TV product, to Boomer's point of like why have McNeese State or any of those type of things. I mean, you could potentially see where at least you have one preseason game, right? Literally just call it a preseason game and have it be a money game, and you have some random team come up and play Nebraska. It's not even doesn't matter, right? Like you can play the game and you're expecting to win, but it's not going to impact the actual win-loss record. Just call it what it is. And that gives that program some money and allows the Power 3 teams to warm up. And then you have 1 or 2 non-cons against your other Power 3 teams. We play one Big 12 team and one SEC team every year, and we have 10 Big 10 teams. And right, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get there is that we could completely reimagine scheduling, right? And it would produce better content, better weeks of football, and you could still accommodate a bye game essentially of some sort.
Some kind of consistency behind it too, because that's been our biggest argument over the last 10 years of a playoff era. Is
for goodness sakes.
8-team conference schedules versus 9-team ones, and then some teams go out and schedule two. Oregon's had years where they've had 2 P5 non-conference teams on top of 9-game schedules. They'll play 11 P5 teams in 1 year.
Yeah,
and then you have some. We've had some of the Mississippi schools sometimes have had 0 P5 non-conference games. They're only playing 8. And so that kind of inconsistency is what really has to go away. That's where I knock the NFL for a number of things, but NFL at least has it down pat with how they have rules. This is they have divisions. This is how we schedule. This is how you're going to do it. And that none of that is in place with college.
And from a product standpoint, again, why wouldn't we actually hold off on announcing our schedules until like the year before, right? NFL makes the unveiling of their schedule a huge deal. And you're like, oh my God, we're going to play them on that date, right? I mean, could you imagine if you don't know if you're going to play Oklahoma or Tennessee or whatever in your one non-con SEC game that you're going to have to play one SEC game?
I'll tell you.
And they're coming to Lincoln this year, and you're like, oh, who's it going to be, right?
Dave, if they could, if it made sense for some schools, I'm not saying every school, but if it made sense where Nebraska could have an Oklahoma annual rivalry come out of all of this, when you think of like all the terrible things, how college football has destroyed itself, all the traditionalists that, could you imagine if one of the things that came out of this was Nebraska playing Oklahoma annually again? Like,
Sure.
like the traditionalists would come out and be like, "Oh, thank God!" Even though we're in this,
It all worked out in the end.
Yeah, it finally worked out, right? You know, Oklahoma could, if they have to play one Big 12 and one Big 10 team, they play Oklahoma State and they play us, right? And Oklahoma can keep up a couple of rivalries while they're in the SEC now. I mean, I don't know how this is all going to play out, but the overreaction, I think, to people thinking that, oh my God, we're going to pull out of all these non-conference games. I just don't see it. The next couple of years are going to happen. And really, by the time we get to Oklahoma, I mean, if we tried to pull out of Oklahoma, the fans would react the same way they did back in 2021.
So,
And I don't think that's going to be a problem, because by the time we get to Oklahoma, I don't think that the schedules are going to be the way they are anyways.
Yeah,
There's too much change. And in the 24 hours since all that craziness on Twitter came out, we now have a 14-team playoff being talked about. I mean, this is how quickly these things are changing. Like, wait a day, and everything else is going to be different.
They had a very productive meeting, Honky.
And I think that what the playoff does with those at-large bids will really kind of dictate how people are going to schedule going forward. Are they going to look for just the teams that just have a lot of wins and give them those spots, or are they going to seriously reward teams that do schedule a little tougher?
Boomer, they're going to look at the net ranking,
right? Or there'll be a college football net ranking, well, you go to the honk palm in that case. But yeah, I mean, it's just what people are talking about. I mean, because when you talk about non-con scheduling in the playoffs, because you think, okay, there's 5 guaranteed slots, so if you win if you're in a major conference and you win the conference you're in, non-con games don't matter. So when you're talking non-con, you're arguing who's positioning themselves for one of those 7 remaining slots is what you're arguing about at this point.
That's right.
So what positions you best for that? Is it wins against cupcakes, or is it playing a good schedule? And
scheduling such a weird talk, and
it is a weird talk, but it does have bearing in this.
NFL doesn't care when they get to their playoffs. They don't care that you played in a division that was a bunch of like, my issue with NFL is some team that has a losing record wins a really bad division, and all of a sudden gets a home game against a team that has a better record, maybe beat them in conference, played a tough division. But the NFL doesn't care. Only in college football do we care. Or then we also start to change the rules. Florida State, to your point, doesn't get in. Well, they scheduled really hard. They scheduled Florida and LSU. Well, Florida wasn't very good this year. Oh, well, now you're not only responsible for scheduling strong, but you're responsible for the teams that you scheduled also being good at the same time.
Right. Well, that's a team years in advance too. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just gets to be too much. And this system is, I think it's going to actually clear itself up. This is the positive part of me here. I actually think there's going to be something. This is getting so ridiculous that it's going to lead,
right? Yeah.
It's going to lead to some kind of consistency and something where it's going to be a big, different change. We're going to move out of the system we're in right now, because this is so bad. I think you're going to get some regulation around NIL and transfer portal with it too. I think it has to get really bad before it gets good. But what's going to come out of this is, I can't see any way with the money and the TV games that people are going to want to watch. They're not going to want to watch Nebraska playing McNeese State. And that brings the whole conversation back to Boomer, you and I being on the same page about we're not going to see those games, because I don't think it's even really going to be available unless we do what Dave is saying, where maybe they build in a game like that. They do something like that. But short of that, I mean, I think this is a very temporary problem.
Let's play McNeese on August 24th. In week -0.
I've heard people make the reference that they should do that in spring. Nebraska should play McNeese State the way that volleyball has a game against Kansas State in April. Why can't we do that in football? I don't know what all the rules and everything would have to be around that, but sure. I mean, it's going to be a different system.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're right. And I guess my modest proposal is people who just want us to see us win games and find the easiest path to the playoff. If that's what you really think we should do, you should advocate for us to drop the Big Ten and join the MAC or the AAC, because we could dominate those conferences every year. And there's going to be a 5th team that's not a Power 5 school getting into the playoffs. There you go. If that's what you want, there's your easiest path to the playoff every year. Because Nebraska,
if you want to get to the play,
undefeated most of those years, or at least highly ranked.
If you want to get to the playoff, Matt Rule, keep them around. Let's have some consistency. Let's play good football. We can't talk about being in bad, going to some bad conference. We were just in the Big Ten West for the last 10 years, and we haven't had any success. So I don't think we've got to get good, not worry about even what the schedule looks like. Just get good, beat the teams, beat the teams on your schedule, and I think we'll be fine.
All right, guys. Well, we could talk for hours on this. We might actually, when the show ends, continue to talk for hours. But let's wrap up the show here with some parting shots. And Rob, I've not heard from you in a while, so I'm going to throw it to Redcast Rob.
Well,
I enjoyed the little banter there between Honky and Boomer, though. Didn't
I
you,
was
Rob?
just listening. It was
great.
Good. That's great material.
That
guys,
was
so thank you so
robust
much
podcasting right there.
And, well, I was hoping to congratulate producer Skip on a really nice win at the Pit in New Mexico tonight against the Lobos for his CSU Rams, but they lost by 2.
Oh,
yeah, they had a shot at the end with about 3 seconds left to do that. That's what I was watching.
Get 5, maybe 6 teams in though.
Sorry, Skip. I was pulling for you, man. I've kind of become like a Rams fan by proxy because of Skip. We often will text because I'll watch the games and him and I are texting back and forth about them and all that. I also as far as parting shot go, I had one, and then Honky and Boomer going back and forth like that, and then doing Redcast taxes all day. It's just my brain is fried. So good night, Redcasters.
All right, thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Boomer.
Well, we had a lot of sports earlier on this. Baseball, softball, basketball. Don't forget Husker bowling. They had a pretty good weekend at the Midwinter Classic. That was a lot of good teams in that bracket. Nebraska pulled out some good wins and finished 5th, I think, finally in that. They had some wins over like Jacksonville State and Youngstown, highly ranked bowling teams this year. So it's not just those sports. So get a chance at those traditional ones, and don't forget your Australian rules football season kicks off in about 2 weeks here. So get your team now.
Midwinter Classic. It feels like it's like already the late winter, right?
It's weather, global warming, and all that.
Or spring, I guess. All right, get us out of here, Honk.
Rob, did you have something
I remembered what I wanted to say, and I wanted to give a big shout out to Fly Like Kai this weekend had a bowling tournament where they raised a bunch of money for foster children in the Lincoln area, and it was fully sponsored by Aloe Fiber, which is great out there in Lincoln. And I just want to give a shout out to Aloe as well. The marketing team reached out to me and on Twitter of all things, and they were like, "Hey, we saw you wanted a t-shirt from this event. What size can we send you? What's your address?" And I was like, you can find me on Teams, and you can just like shoot me a Teams message and send it to the 808 office here in Greeley. So they didn't realize that I was that part of the team, did not realize I was part of the team. So it's a beautiful thing. I'll have the t-shirt and I'll be sporting that too, because I'm so excited that Aloe has actually Malachi is the only NIL deal that for Husker football that Aloe does for Malachi, because the fact that he gives all of his NIL money back to his charity, which is he takes all that money and pays for foster children to be able to participate in sports. So it's a beautiful thing. I love what Craig, Miranda, and Malachi are all doing over there for that in the community out there in Nebraska. So God bless them all.
All right. Thanks, Rob. That's very good. I'm glad you remembered that. All right, Hawk. Now take us out.
Jeez, I might have forgot mine now. I want to say thank you to Redcast Rob. I did my taxes tonight, but I needed our Redcast taxes done first. And Rob, you did that and sent those to me. So thank you very much. Speaking of taxes, Nebraskans, make sure if you're a homeowner that you are getting the property tax credit. It is not just part of, the H&R or whatever you do. You have to actually fill out a separate form. And there's a lot of people that are leaving money on the table. And I just
thousands of dollars. I hear
thousands. I just got a text from a buddy of mine.
We are not certified accountants, so you don't necessarily have to take our advice.
But my buddy of mine just texted me at night, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, "Oh, thanks, man. We went back and we had a couple years worth that we didn't get." So make sure you go out and do that. And as far as the weather we were just talking about, and does it feel midwinter or whatever? Next Monday is going to be 74 degrees in Lincoln, and Wednesday could be 34. And it just goes back to this is a weird time of year weather-wise. We shouldn't be playing baseball, but that should be starting in a month. But a lot of stuff going on right now. Go Big Red. Let's get into the tournament in basketball. Let's get healthy in softball. Let's get the baseball team go in there and support the Huskers. GBR.
Absolutely. Yeah, GBR is right. I mean, it's a good season right now. We have a lot of stuff starting up, and have some basketball that hopefully we'll have a lot to root for. But we'll have a show here hopefully in the next week or two with more Husker victories on tap. For now, though, let's call that another Go Big Redcast.
GBR.
Go Big Red.
A Herd at Sports Network production.